Between now and the latter portion of February, we're going to be hopefully having epiphanies of our own during this Epiphany season. We're starting this new sermon series, Getting to Know Your Spiritual Self. And it is in part a sermon series and also in part a learning series. There's information about it here in your bulletin, which includes detailed information about these small group opportunities that you can participate in. Each small group is going to meet 3 times and do a different sort of self-diagnostic tool each time they meet, so that you can discover more about your spiritual self. Sign-ups for that are in the back. I wanted to take just a moment before we started to tell you more about this book and why I really want to encourage you to read it with us during these 2 months. So when I went to the Festival of Homiletics last spring, I heard the author of this book, Brian McLaren, give a presentation on it. In this book, he outlines the 4 seasons of spirituality. That there's the season of simplicity, which is a season of spiritual awakening. The season of complexity, which is the season of spiritual strengthening. The season of perplexity, the season of spiritual surviving. And the season of harmony, which is a season of spiritual deepening. Now, the goal in life is to not get to the season of harmony and land there and live there forever. No, these seasons, much like the seasons of the year, tend to rotate throughout our lives. And what McLaren points out is that no matter what season we find ourselves in, we can find ourselves like the woman at the well, parched, not physically, but spiritually, in need of life-giving waters and renewal. And so in this book, McLaren not only outlines what it means to be in that particular season, but also sustainable, practical spiritual practices for each of those seasons. I hope that you'll consider purchasing a book and reading along with us and being part of the learning series that we're doing. So today we're going to look at what it means to be like the woman at the well. No matter what season of our spiritual lives we find ourselves in, what it means to be parched and searching for that life-giving spirit. So as we prepare for the word preached, would you join with me, your hearts and minds, in prayer? Oh God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be found acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Several years ago, David and I went to see his cousin's daughter run in a cross-country meet. It was taking place on a fall day, and it was one of those Indian summer days, which turned out to just be a hot, hot summer day. We were outside all day long. We didn't take water with us, and there wasn't water available. And so by the time we were done, we were just parched. I've never been that thirsty in my life. We went with David's cousin and her family to a restaurant, and when we sat down at the restaurant, we told the waitress, bring each of us 3 glasses of water and don't come back until we finished them. We were that thirsty. I could feel how the water was affecting how I was feeling once I started to drink it. My headache started to go away, and I started to have life again. Dehydration is a real thing, isn't it? It affects how we feel. It can affect our vision. It can affect, like I said, our head. And if we're dehydrated for a long time, it can have adverse effects on our body. I have an elderly friend who went to the doctor, and the doctor sat him down and said, "You don't drink water enough. You know how I can tell? Because your organs have actually begun to shrink and shrivel. This is how dehydrated he was. Prolonged periods of dehydration has caused his insides to shrink up. And even though in the John passage, it would seem as if this woman and Jesus are talking about this kind of thirst, what it means to physically be thirsty. We know that Jesus is trying to get her to think about something else, what it means to be spiritually thirsty. Jesus offers her living water, something completely different than what she has experienced in her regular religious world. He offers her a life-giving relationship with the living God. And yet she turns right back around and offers him something that will not satisfy. Whose mountain is bigger? It's one of those common arguments among religious folk of Jesus' day. There were lots of debates about whose mountain was bigger, whose mountain was holier, and therefore which religion's mountain would get you closer to God. Her answer is akin to what happens when we are physically thirsty and we grab the wrong thing to drink. We've all heard stories of people who are tailgating or at a NASCAR race or at some party in the summer who drink alcohol all day and become dehydrated because the alcohol counteracts the hydration effects of the liquid. Likewise, if you're dehydrated and you go to drink a soft drink, the caffeine does the same thing. If you're thirsty, you can't just drink any old thing, right? You have to drink the right thing in order to really be replenished. Well, the same thing is true in our spiritual lives. If we are parched spiritually, if we are thirsting for God, we can't just reach for any old thing. Because not any old thing will satisfy. We have to search and seek after the living water that Christ offers us. So I would ask you this morning, instead of leaving you with lots of answers, I would leave you with lots of questions. How parched is your soul? How thirsty are you for what it is that God offers? Do you find yourself like the woman at the well, so thirsty for the Spirit, and yet going after the same old in order to satisfy? Do you find yourself this morning like David and I did at that cross-country meet, where we had been temporarily thirsty? Are you in a place in your life where you've had a lot of crises and you've allowed yourself to distance from God? And so you need to replenish and you need to reconnect, and you need to do so quickly. Or do you find yourself like my elderly friend who's been going for so long without actually replenishing that he's starting to shrivel and shrink? Or do you find yourself drinking from the well often? Do you know how it is that you and God connect, and are you able to drink of that living water? These are the questions that I want you to wrestle with this week. To do some soul searching and to find out how it is with your soul. If you are standing in a river and dying of thirst, or if you are drinking deeply from the well. And if you are dying of thirst, don't just stand there and do nothing. But I invite you to do something about that. To put away the things of sort of empty religious practices, and to find things that do replenish your soul. How thirsty are you? That's really the question for today.